Hello, my name is Paul-Beckett, and today I want to talk a little bit about the time before my self-realization. Um, I realized my true nature a year and a bit ago, and before that, I wasn't spiritual. I had no religious belief. I was an atheist. Um, so obviously, it was very spontaneous. It seemed completely out of the blue, and it seemed a little bit like, why would this happen to me? Why would this happen to me when some people have been such devout, like been devoutly followed religions, had really intense spiritual seeking, this hunger knowing there must be more, loads of knowledge from all of these things that they're consuming. They've heard of self-realization, so close to it. Why did it happen for me? Why did it happen for me when I had none of those things? And so it's led to some question of what was I like before? Because I know that we play a role, we play a character, we call it the ego, okay? And that character is just conditioned to our beliefs, through our assumptions, through our opinions of ourselves, through things that people have put on us, our parents, our friends, our family, our culture, our race, our religion, our gender. We build all of these things up to be the character that we play in this world. Um, so I think back on Paul, okay? I think back on the character of Paul. Well, Paul was always really, really playful. Um, really playful to the point where people would tell me, you need to take things seriously. Now, I always had a successful job, so I had a successful relationships. It wasn't like this play was negatively impacting my life. It wasn't like, um, the way the world would look at it, like, God, like, you don't take anything seriously and like your life's falling down around you. It wasn't like that. But I had this real lightheartedness. I still do. I still do have this real lightheartedness. And now I think about it, now I know my true nature. Now I've felt it. I've felt it. I've felt it in me. I've just known it with every cell of my being. That lightheartedness, that playfulness, that childishness that people would sometimes tell me was immaturity. Even though I realized my true nature when I was 44, you know what I mean? So no spring chicken. But I would quite often get told I was immature. I needed to kind of wise up. That's not how, men of my age act, because I had this playfulness. I had this playfulness and this lightheartedness, which as soon as I realized my true nature, I was like, that is that thing. Because there's a childishness to it. There's an innocence without a naivety, if that makes sense. There's a sense of wonder, a sense of, what's next. And Paul, I always had that kind of that sense of, and it's funny because the world's upside down. I've told you this a million times, but when I was growing up and then throughout my late 20s, things, friends, families, people I worked with would, in the nicest possible way, thinking they really do me a favor, would tell me that I needed to wise up, that I needed to, to like be more on it, be more this, be, and it always felt so wrong to me. Don't get me wrong, I've got a degree, I've got an MA, there was times that I had to buckle down and work, but if I didn't find joy in what I was doing, I didn't see the point to doing it. And that really got me thinking now, because now in this new way of being, I know that joy is everything. I know that that should be the barometer that I live my life by. Where's the joy in this? Where's my passion for this? Where's that, like, that inspiration? Where's that, like, that energy? And because if it isn't there, I'm not interested. In the nicest possible way, that's not for me. Like, that must be for somebody else, and maybe somebody else will find joy in this thing that I'm finding incredibly boring, and that's okay. But I realized that there was a lot of my being that really was rooted in what my true nature was before. Um, creativity. Creativity is. I was always a really creative kid. To the point that when I was little, I didn't want to go out and play with other kids. I wanted to stay in my room, drawing, painting, being creative, making up stories. I was really, really, really super creative. And again, by the time I got to kind of secondary school, and when you're in like When you're with the young kids, that's okay, but people are a bit like, well, you're a creative type, are you? That's not going to get you very far. Or, if you really needs to balance this like hindrance of being of being one of those creative types with some really solid skills, otherwise the world will eat you alive. You're not going to do very much. And I realized that when I was in these states of creativity, when I was painting or when I was drawing, I would switch off. And Paul would not be there anymore. But I would be just in the moment and things would just be flowing really, really effortless to me, to the point of I would finish what I was doing and I'd be a bit like, who did that? Obviously, I'd know it was me, but I just wasn't aware of all the little decisions that I must have had to make on the way. The things it just flowed. It flowed out of me. So I realized that that was totally in keeping with what I know our true nature to be, this flow state, this effortless flow state, which is something that somehow I was hacking into most of my life. I've said this before, but I wrote a children's book in 6 weeks, completely like that. Paul was dyslexic, but it just came from this place. I Before I realized my true nature, I was waking up in the night with fully formed poems in my head. I'd never wrote a poem in my life, but this creative impulse, this creative edge was just going through the roof, especially more and more as it was leading up to my true nature. It was like I was a bottle of champagne that someone had shaken, and my cork was ready to go. It was desperate to pop, but it just wasn't quite there yet, and it was leaking and it was leaking. And so now I think like, well, that was so in line with this kind of flow state that I realize now is very of our true nature. I tend not to talk about what I call like the woo stuff, the kind of mystical things, because there's a lot on the internet about it, and also I feel like I want to communicate to you the simpleness of this, the ordinariness of this, and the fact that this is for you. Because what my true nature is the same as your true nature. There is nothing special about me. So this is for you. And sometimes I think when things get a bit mystical and a little bit like kind of it could maybe turn people off, or people might be able to relate with that. And that's, I want you to relate with this because I want this for you. I want you just to realize the way I did. But I used to, all my life I've dreamt really, really vividly. And then I got to a stage, again, on the run up to my self-realization, where I was realizing that I was dreaming within a dream. And then I would stop and I would look around the world that I created, and I would say, how have I created the world so detailed? How have I created a world with such minute detail? Like I'd be in a cityscape, I'd turn down a road and every building would be perfect. I'd look in rooms, I'd be like, how have I created this? How is my mind capable of this? I would question myself within the dream. Now, in my waking life, I was also realizing that when I project a worst case scenario, the worst case scenario is what I would get. But I almost wasn't clever enough to realize that it could work in my favor. That, oh, well, maybe if I'm really optimistic about something, I'm going to get that. I obviously wasn't that clever. But I realized the negative end of it, that when I project something like something negative ahead of myself, I always seem to get it. So these things are kind of playing in my mind. So I'm going, well, I know kind of that I can create. I seem to be able to create these negative outcomes, and I know that I'm dreaming where I've dreamed up this minute, perfect world. Everywhere I turn it's like being in reality. So is it so hard for me to believe that my waking reality is created by me? Is it so hard to believe that what I expect I get? Because that is the law of attraction. That is the law of attraction, because our belief is the strongest currency we have. It's everything. Our attention is divine. Our consciousness, our awareness is the power that holds the universe together, and everything outside of that. Who knows how many levels to reality there are, but that is completely held together by our consciousness. So the belief that we have in things is one of our greatest power. It's our greatest currency. So you have to be really, really mindful about your beliefs, about where you're investing that energy, because you will get the return, whether it's positive or negative. So rather than, like I was doing, like kind of unconsciously, even clicking on that, I somehow seem to be able to make these negative situations come true, but then not realizing that there must be another side to the coin. I mean, I don't know why I didn't realize that, but I didn't. So then is it so hard for me to believe that my beliefs, my conscious mind, what power does that have if my unconscious, my subconscious mind can create these completely detailed dream worlds? Can my conscious mind create the world that I perceive? Because if you think about it, you could have, five people in a room with completely different beliefs, completely different belief systems, all witnessing the same kind of scenario, but they all perceive that completely differently due to their beliefs. So in a way, yes, we're all apparently in the same world, but we're in our own world down to what we believe. Okay, so the power in that is just incredible. So there was an awful lot before I spontaneously realized my true nature that I now know. God, that's all tied in. That is so tied in with what I know our true nature to feel like, what I know this to be like, what my life's been like since. But at the time, I didn't realize. I didn't realize. I just thought that was the kind of person I was. I just thought that I had strange dreams. I just thought that, I was creative, and then my creativity somehow was ramping up. Maybe the older I was getting. So think about yourself. Think about yourself and think about, is there, yes, of course, we all get stressed out, yet of course we all get angry, yet of course we all get resentful and jealous and bitter and all of those horrible little human things. But are you having moments where you're acting effortlessly? Are you having moments where to be joyful, to be playful seems like the most natural way to be, whether that be in the office, whether that be anywhere, just creating this sense of like ease and play? Like, are you ever having those kind of moments? Are you dreaming? Are you dreaming and realizing what your mind can create? And if your mind can create that, then what else can it create? Because we are one mind. We are one. The belief in separation is just that. It's just a belief. It's an illusion. Our minds are connected. Our minds are connected, and the world we're experiencing is the product, is the manifestation of that connected mind. So maybe a little bit of a different topic for me to be talking about today, but I really thought to myself, God, the clues were there with me. The clues were really there, even though it took us such a surprise when this happened to me, came out of the blue to me, because I didn't have a religion, I didn't have spiritual beliefs. But now I look back, I go, of course, like, I was a candidate for this. This was inevitable, but I just didn't have the kind of self-awareness, or I wasn't kind of actively seeking, or taking part in a religion or something like that. So I know that will be the same for you, because I'm not special. I'm not special at all. So ask yourself, especially if you're on this spiritual seeking path, ask yourself, is the ways that I'm being already where I'm acting through my true nature? Am I hitting that flow state? Am I feeling that playfulness, that joy, that kind of, that sense of innocence, that sense of wonder? Creatively, do you have like this flow state of creativity? And remember, that doesn't have to be paint and drawing. That can be, creativity comes in cooking. It comes in, playing with your kids. It comes in, just however you express it, because it's unlimited. But think about how you may already be sitting in effortless being, saying, oh, I want to self-realize. Oh, I really want this. This hasn't happened for me yet. But is there so much percentage of your day-to-day life where you are actually sitting as your true nature? Because I bet there is. Because when I went back and just did the detective work with myself, there was so much time where I was just like, wow, I would flip in and out of it, don't get me wrong, and it would go between heavy kind of, stress, anxiety thing, and then this kind of like really free, easy playfulness. But I recognize that now as periods just of me being myself, me being as the one, as the all. So I'm saying this so maybe you can start to recognize these things in yourself. Because see, if you recognize it now, you know that the step to just going, this is what I am, it's such a tiny, tiny step. Such a tiny step if you can realize that you're already there. You're already there, and just sometimes you give yourself permission to be it when you're not getting caught up in the icky little character we've made for ourselves. You still be times that you're giving yourself permission to be effortless. And what if you just took away that belief that that couldn't be all the time? So have a think, because I'm not making this video to say like, oh look how good I am. This happened for me. Like, look at all these wonderful things that were happening before. I'm doing this so it can point you in the direction where you can realize that it's already happening for you. It's already happening because it's what you already are. Remember, you're just wearing a disguise. This came first. The disguise came second. So I want you to realize that you're already having moments of this. You're already having hours of this, like periods of this. I don't know, maybe you're chopping and changing a million times a day, but you already are this. You already are this. Okay, so have a think. Open your mind to the fact that this could already be here for you. Okay, I love you. Bye.